Hello and welcome to the 145 Rural Podcast, where we are here to strengthen music careers and communities one song at a time. And now here's your host, Jacob Wing. Yay!
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to the 145 Rural Podcast. Great to have you again. And I just want to say one thing. I want you to lean in a little bit, listen deeply, or if you're watching this on YouTube, stare deeply into my eyes. You're going to fail. All right, that's it. Have a great one. Bye, guys. Okay, I was just kidding. But you are going to fail. And sometimes that's hard to hear, and especially individually and with our egos, it's very hard to take sometimes. But as again, with these early episodes, as we are trying to build a foundation and get everybody to get on the same page and make things easier as you move forward, starting at the beginning and understanding, just like everything in life and just like everything you try to do in life, you're going to fail in some capacity, in some way, either completely, partially, or somewhere in between. So as we adapt and as we move forward, it's important to realize this is part of life, realize this is part of growth, and to work that into the systems as you build something, as you grow, as you become a better person, as a better musician, and it really does help. And the more that you work with it and you think about it, it works out better because you're starting to fear failure less and less. And you start to work those failures into your processes and the way you develop things. It really draws the problematic areas of failing and turns them into wins, which is really what this is all about. So as we start to talk about this, I just want to start with a very simple thought exercise. And it's not too deep, it's not too hard. We're just going to think about somebody that you personally admire. And it doesn't have to be an artist. It doesn't even have to be music. It can be anywhere in your life where there's somebody that either helped you, influenced you, or inspired you in some way. And we're just going to take that person, and either if you know them deeply and you know their backstory, or if you don't, the important thing is just to realize where they're at and how they influenced you. What part of them drew you in and gave you inspiration that you want to be like that. You want your life to be in that direction. And then I really want you to just take a second and picture their life before that moment. You know, their childhood, their younger years, their teen years, their early 20s even. What things did they have to go through? What trials and tribulations did they go through? And as you find out, as you have heroes in this life, it's easy to buy into the myth and the lies and everything that surrounds them, that builds them up to the legendary status that they usually achieve, or where they are in your mind, or in whatever industry or realm they exist. It's just, if you separate out the myth from that, it's easy to see that they've had, hundreds upon hundreds, if not thousands, of failures along that path. Very, very few of them ever started out in that direction, or that's where they wanted to end up in some way. They make, especially if you start with artists like a musician, yes, they loved music, but they never knew where that end path was going to take them. They might have liked a certain genre. They might have been drawn to a certain type. A geographic location might have dictated what kind of music they were going to be influenced by. But when they decided that they wanted to move in that direction, there was going to be a long line of failures behind them. And that's a good thing. Those things that they went through, those things that they messed up or that didn't work out, either defined who they were, defined who they didn't want to be, or showed them what not to do. So as you can start to think about that and how they wound up at that exact moment when you started to recognize them as somebody that you admired or that would influence you in what you do, it's easy to maybe look back at your life and understand all the failures and the things that we didn't quite achieve, or the embarrassing thoughts that we tried to erase from our minds that defined who we are and where we're at right now. So moving forward, after we've done this little bit of a thought exercise, maybe during that thought exercise, you didn't quite get to the point where you knew enough things. You've only really bought into the legends and the myths of how they got to that point and where they're at, and you didn't quite see or think of too many failures. I would urge you at that point, get a book, get Audible and get either a biography if they're, a big name, and learn about what they went through. I mean, every good book is telling a story, right? So they're going to tell you all the things they went through and all the problems and all the other times they were denied or they fell on their face. And just kind of learn that, internalize that and let that give you a bit of hope and something to work to, a light in the future to achieve to. If it's not somebody that's a bigger name that has a book or a documentary or, troves of information available online on, Reddit or a Wikipedia page, and it's just somebody in your local life, a pastor or anybody really, somebody who was your first music teacher or just somebody that you played with that really gave you that spark and inspiration and showed you what that drive can achieve. Reach out to them. They will love that. If you don't talk to them on a daily basis and they're not part of your life and you reach out to them, I guarantee you they're going to want to talk or sit down or have coffee or tea or a drink and talk about their life and when they met you and what they had to go through and how they got to that point. People love talking about themselves. It's just part of who we are. It's great. And you can use that as a resource, which is just fantastic. And the more, like I said, the more that you kind of dig deeper and ask them about those kind of things and those things that they might not be so proud of, but help define them, you're going to start applying those principles and being okay with those things that have happened in your life. So, just make sure if like I said, if you hadn't got to that point and you need to dig a little bit deeper, go for that. It really will pay off. And as you really internalize that, be sure to think about what sets them apart. Why were they at that level that drew you in, or why did they achieve this status where they're at? And make sure that you, as you've pieced out the situations and the backstories to all this stuff, make sure that you understand why they got where they were and how that worked. And a real big part that you're going to see, a real thematic theme, not saying the same word twice, you're going to run into is that anybody that got anywhere or any level or achieved any level of success, the common thing that happened is that they never stopped. And a big part of that is that, they took a couple different angles as they met these hurdles, as they fell on their face. They either, one, stopped right there. So they hit a wall, something didn't work the way they wanted to, and they just went a completely different direction. So I'm never doing that again. It sucked. I hated it. I was embarrassed. I'm not going to do it again. So they went a completely different direction. Another thing that they could have done is just done the same thing, kept going in that same direction, but just adapted it a little bit. Okay, so this didn't work, but I saw some things in there, and so I'm going to go in this new direction and just not do a couple of these things. And then there's a whole spectrum in between of not doing it again or doing it again, but learning a different lesson. So in between there, that's what you're going to see as just a common thing, that those people that failed but still achieve success just keep going in some way. Now, the best way to think about this, after we've done a little bit of analyzing and thinking, is to think about failure as a cycle. And as I'm writing down parts of this and just trying to plot out a little bit of a map, I came up with just a 3-part cycle that can really help you think about failure as a tool and some way to use this. So with failure, the first step with like everything in life is you need to accept it. And that's really the hardest part. One, we have our egos, which is a whole battle in itself. And it hurts. It really hurts. It's embarrassing. You don't want people to look down upon you. You don't want to be seen as a loser or a failure. But the faster that we can understand that failure happens and it's part of everything, and to be humble enough to accept that and just be like, hey, okay, I failed. I get it. Yeah, look at me. I didn't do it the way I wanted. I didn't come out the way that I was really hoping. What can I learn from this? What can I take away from this? And the faster that we get to that, the more that we can grow and the faster we can grow. So accepting is the first part of that cycle. The second part is the one that we just did. You just went through those steps of taking somebody in your life and learning about their failures, applying to your life and thinking about your failures. And the important part is that you start to comprehend what happened. It becomes easier and easier the more that you go through this process, that you can comprehend exactly what happened and learn from those mistakes. And, it's so much deeper and so much harder than we tell ourselves, when we're kids, like, oh, fire, bad, touch, hot, no, oh, just don't do that again. But there's so many more intricacies involved in this. So the more that you develop your own process of how you see reality and how you see the things that unfold in front of you and how you learn that, okay, that wasn't what I wanted, the more you go through an analysis of that and do that, the better off you be. And like I said, just like accepting it, the faster you get to this stage and the faster that you learn to identify those markers of what worked and what didn't, the faster you grow, the better you become, the higher you can achieve. Hi there, and welcome to the ad break. We're just going to take a moment to let everybody know about our community of growing members, and if you'd like to be a part of that, just look at the info below and there will be a click there for an email sign up to join in and get your voice heard. As well, if you're enjoying this content, please join our Patreon at patreon.com/145world. There you can join any of our groups, and you can add to the discussion of what topics we will choose that will help you and hopefully future members of our groups, as well as join monthly Q&As and other such benefits. Again, that's patreon.com/145world, and we look forward to seeing you there. Now, back to that regularly scheduled episode, and enjoy that content. Thanks again. And the very last part of the cycle, we had accept and then comprehend and learn. And then the very last part is you have to pick a new direction. And we talked about that just a bit ago, where we're saying, there's 2 directions here, basically with a spectrum in between, is that you can either never do that again and say, I'm going a completely different direction. Or you can say, hey, part of that worked. It didn't get where I wanted to get, but I got something good out of it. In the music world, it would be just a quick off the cuff example would be, hey, I wanted to try this new sound. I put out a couple songs, didn't really go as well as I wanted. It didn't draw in the numbers. There was nobody talking about it. It was pretty much felt ignored. But maybe there was a couple fans that came in and were like, hey, this is great. I really love your voice. Or somebody comes in and is like, hey, your playing style is really unique. I really enjoyed that. There's things to take away from that. So you learn that, hey, I don't want to go this direction. This isn't working for me. Maybe I don't feel like this is expressing how I wanted to feel and I want to go a different way. But maybe I'm going to work a little bit more to develop the sound of my voice, or I'm going to really emphasize my playing style. You get little nuggets here and you move forward. So that's the cycle there that you can use to identify. And again, that was just accept it And the faster you can accept it, you can move on to comprehending and learning and really identifying those key triggers and those things to take away from a failure, and then move on to getting a new direction and a plan. And, that is really the process. And the more that we are aware of it and the more the way that we use it, the faster this will go and the better you will get every single day. Now, as we move towards the latter part of this, and I move this kind of towards to the back of this section here for a reason, because I didn't want you to just hear this like you're going to fail and then jump to the part of here's how you can avoid failing, because that's not the point of this. But there are things that we can do in our daily lives to fast track this or avoid failure altogether. And those things are pretty obvious, but I think we should touch upon them. And the first thing that we can do to avoid failure and go through those pitfalls of that cycle that we just went over is to get a mentor, get an internship. And obviously when you reference somebody in your head, you already had somebody in mind that was a mentor to you or gave you a direction in some way, even if it wasn't directly to you, and a sit down back and forth kind of way. Just them giving you that spark of wanting to be better and to grow into something was a direction. And if you want to avoid a lot of the pitfalls in life, it's much easier just to get somebody who's been there and seen it and done it and fallen many, many times to help you along the way, and let them tell you, you really shouldn't do this. You should avoid this little pitfall here and don't do that. I did that. Here's what happened. Don't do that. And the younger you are, the harder it is to honestly listen and absorb that. And that's just part of being young, and that's fine. But the faster you can get to the point where you're ready to take on a mentor and absorb these things, the faster you're going to rise and get to that level. That's kind of what we're doing right now here. I am not your mentor. I am not, here to do that. But I am here to give you a little bit of direction and talk together about things that we have all done, we've all been through, so that we don't have to go through these things over and over again. And those that are just starting can avoid beating their head against a wall and doing those same things over and over again. But that's a great way to not have to go through endless trial and error of doing all that just to grab somebody that's already done it. Another way is, of course, one that we are taught from birth, especially in most modern countries, is schools and universities. And we're going to throw courses into that as well. So schools are a great way for us to go, and basically it's a built-in mentorship. You go into a room and somebody who knows things, was trained in things, spent time in their life investing into a certain subject area, tell you what they know, what they've learned in a very structured manner that's supposed to be developed to help you get to a better point faster and more coherently. And those things can be very useful, especially as you get more, tunnel focused and into where you really have one subject and you know what you want to do. That really can be a huge, huge way to avoid failures and having to go through that cycle over and over again. And of course, if you go more and more focused, you're just really talking about trade schools, because they know exactly what they want in the music and production realm and recording area. There's so many of those schools out there that really are great resources that you can use to do that. Another thing, again, of course, is courses. Those are available everywhere, online, YouTube, podcasts, or pretty much a little tiny course here and there. Everything like that is a great resource that you already know exactly what you need to learn, and you can just pick that up and say, hey, okay, so I want to go deeper into this subject. It's just a paid mentorship is all that is. So that's another way to get through that. A third way, and it pretty much all the same way we were just talking about, is just YouTube. And please do not understate how much YouTube has changed everything. And this, especially going out to the younger generation, life before YouTube was very different. We can talk about all the changes and all the technology and everything that grew around it in the last 20, 25 years. But the fact that there's a resource, especially for those who learn in a very visual manner, that you can just type something in and say, I need to know how to do this, watch them do it, see what they do, and then go do that, is one of the most invaluable sources that has ever existed. Audio production you can learn exclusively through YouTube. That is absolutely insane. Before YouTube existed, you had to go into a studio as an intern and look like a moron, quite frankly, day in and day out until you get your shot to sit in front of a console, sit in front of some analog gear and mix around with it and mess around. And, you know, that took years upon years and somebody to take you in. And it was just a whole thing. But now that you can just go point and click and say, show me how to do this. Like, I have such and such DAW. I want to learn this technique. How do I make this sound better? And something pops up and just shows you how to do it. It is completely insane how valuable that resource is. So I cannot stress this enough. Please, please go use YouTube for that, whatever it is. Even if you just glance over it and look at the number of things there, go use YouTube as a resource. So those are three of the great ways that you can, you know, move a little bit faster. They're kind of little cheat codes when it comes to that cycle of learning from failure. But I just want to touch upon one more thing as I've gone through this, and I really did hit YouTube hard there. But all three of those things I talked about, mentorships, internships, or schools and courses, and YouTube, there's something that you need to be aware of, and maybe more so I'm speaking to myself and especially my younger self. You have to be wary of loops. And the thing about that is it's really easy to get stuck in a loop. When it comes to like schools, for example, I think we all have some example in our head of somebody that we know that got through high school, went to college, and then it kind of felt like that's what they were doing endlessly. They went to college, they went and got their master's, and then they went for their doctorate. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but there's some people that just kept they'd go back for a different subject, or they changed their major, or they wanted to do something a little different. They just kind of felt like they were in endless loop, but they got comfortable being in school in that environment, but they didn't want to really step out into the realm that they were learning and then apply those things. And there's a whole thing. You have to, like, just like everything else starting out, you got to start at the bottom and fail your way up. And the same thing can happen with YouTube. And I am the worst about this. And I know there's a lot of you out there like me where you want to learn something, and I want to learn everything. I want to go deep. I want to know the ins and outs, why it existed. I want the history. I want to know where it's going. I want to know how to apply it. I want to know why some people are better than others. You know, it is an endless list of whatever that subject matter happens to be. And it's really easy just to continue to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and never get out. You know, the endless rabbit hole that we can fall into. So you have to be aware of this when enough knowledge is enough knowledge. You know, I heard the term the other day, knowledge porn. And then I was like, oh, that term hurt. That hurt my feelings is what it did, because I am one of those people that I can never get enough information about any subject. And you've got to be aware of this. You've got to know when to step away and to know that you've got enough information and it's time to go do and apply what you know and learn firsthand what you don't know and use these systems to fail forward. And as musicians, as I talk to a lot of people, when we do these interviews and we kind of learn the process they went to get out there and, you know, how they got where they are, there's always that step where somebody's got to say, I'm just going to do it. I'm not ready. I don't feel like I'm quite ready. You're just going to go out and do it. And that's kind of the difference between honest success and failure in life. At the end of the day, did you step out and do it? Did you go out and achieve the things? Were you okay with failure? And that's what we're talking about here. So just to go over what we really discussed here, and what I want you to take away from this is that you're going to fail at most everything you do, and that's okay. And the sooner that you realize that, the sooner that we can accept that, the easier it is to move forward, and the easier it is to use those things as an invaluable resource and a tool to achieve what we want to achieve. So it's a good thing. Failing is a good thing. And it's how you handle that and how you look at that. I'm not going to tell you that your personality should change in any way or that you should be a different person, but life gets better when you see failure as an opportunity, as a learning experience, and as an invaluable tool that it really is. So in the end, just remember that you fail, accept it, comprehend it, and learn from it, and then plan a new direction. And that's really about it today. Thank you all for listening, and I really appreciate it. And then if you guys have any thoughts on this, please let us know. If you want to send us examples of times that you failed and things that you've gone through that you learned that, looking back, that changed who you are or helped you define where you are in your career right now, and we can share that with others, please share them with us. They're so invaluable. And maybe we'll find a different kind of forum or a different kind of show that we can just get those out there, and we'll share people's experiences. So by all means, please share those with us. Let us know. So we really appreciate your guys' time, and we'll see you on the very next episode. Go out there and fail. Have a good one. Bye.